Funniest thing about Housewives turning 20 is realizing how much of the culture speaks Housewives without even knowing it. Like the memes, the reaction gifs, the receipts, the screenshots, the hot mics, the reunions, getting activated, disengaging. Housewives didn't just document the culture for the last 20 years. I think it actually taught the culture how to speak back. And that's what makes this anniversary 20 of years so interesting to me, because Bravo isn't just sitting everybody down on a soundstage and showing clips from the last 20 years. They're physically traveling through Housewives history with Orange County and Beverly Hills and Atlanta and Miami and New York and eventually Bluestone Manor at the end. Thank God. Going back to the places where the mythology was created, recreating old parties, bringing back former cast members, revisiting fights, relationships, eras, putting these women face to face with the earlier versions of themselves in cardboard cutouts. The locations themselves have become part of the IP, and Bluestone Manor doesn't need an explanation to a Housewives fan. Exhibit A. Neither does the family van. Neither does a Sprinter van anymore, for that matter. They're references now, part of a language of millions of people understand. And I think the 7 women Bravo chose to actually make this trip, this cast, are incredibly revealing. Vicky represents the beginning. Luann, Teresa, and Kyle represent the massive expansion of Housewives into something much bigger than OC. Portia represents Atlanta becoming an absolute pop culture force. Giselle represents the next generation of cities proving the formula could keep expanding. And then Lisa Barlow with Salt Lake City premiering in 2020. It doesn't have to have 15 or 20 years of history. It didn't need them, but social media completely compressed the amount of time it took for something to become Housewives history. A hot mic rant becomes canon almost immediately. Receipts, proof, timelines, screenshots becomes vocabulary. And a Sprinter van becomes mythology. Something happens on TV and it gets clipped now and gifted and memed and quoted, turned into a TikTok sound, argued about online. And suddenly it feels like we've just known it forever, because putting Lisa next to Vicky says something pretty important. It's that the canon is still open. Bravo is celebrating Housewives history at the exact time it's actively making more of it. 3 days before Ultimate Girls Trip, Roaring 20th premiered, Bravo dropped the trailer for season 7 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So while they're asking us to look back at 20 years of Housewives, they're also immediately asking to look forward. That's continuity, and the return of someone like NeNe makes the whole thing even more interesting to me, because she hasn't been a housewife since 2020, and her relationship with Bravo after leaving was obviously very complicated, but you cannot tell the story of The Real Housewives without NeNe Leakes. You can't tell the story of what Housewives did to reality TV, reaction gifs, memes, or the way people literally speak online without her. So she comes back. You can leave, get fired, fall out with the network, and then disappear for years. But if you contributed something significant enough to this universe, you're still part of the text. That's what happens when something develops a canon. And this is a huge one, because this anniversary season alone is bringing back 82 housewives from different cities and eras. Think about how strange that is. Most long-running entertainment franchises create fictional characters. Bravo created this enormous rotating class of real women who became characters in American pop culture while continuing to live their actual lives. And that's why dismissing Housewives as trash TV doesn't really cut it anymore. It doesn't really explain what we're watching anymore. I'm not saying it's Shakespeare, although the last season of Salt Lake City was very much a Greek tragedy in more ways than one. Sometimes it's completely ridiculous, but that's why we love it, or at least part of why. But after 20 years, what you've accidentally created is this enormous serialized record of marriage, divorce, money, class, race, sexuality, motherhood, beauty standards, friendship, fame, entrepreneurship, the way women behave in public, and we've watched time happen to them. Marriages begin and end, children grow up, parents die, people get rich, they go to prison, they get sober, they come back, they get famous. The audience got older too. And that's a very different proposition from Real Housewives of Orange County was selling in 2006, because back then the fantasy was this access. What's life actually like behind the gates of this wealthy Orange County community? But we don't need TV to give us access to wealth anymore. Just open Instagram or TikTok and you can see somebody's vacation, their closet, their house, Birkins, dinner reservations before breakfast. What social media can't reproduce as easily is 20 years of continuity. And there's another huge difference between Housewives then and Housewives now. The early ones were people being turned into reality TV characters. Modern Housewives enter a culture where everybody already understands how a reality TV character behaves. A woman joining Housewives in 2026 knows what a confessional is, what a reunion is, that fans will freeze frame her texts, that an argument can become a meme before the episode is even finished airing. She understands personal branding and Instagram and the assignment, which creates this really bizarre evolution where the experiment has actually changed its subjects. The culture being observed learned the language of the experiment. We learned that. And somehow the best Housewives franchises still break through that. And that's part of why Salt Lake City matters so much here, because 16 years after OC premiered, Bravo could still introduce a completely new group of women in Utah and generate characters, language, fights, and moments that now sit comfortably beside things that happened 15 years earlier. And that may be the clearest proof that Housewives is no longer just a long-running reality franchise. It has its own archive, its own language, landmarks, mythology, canon. 20 years ago, Housewives was documenting the culture. 20 years later to today, it's helped create the culture it's actually documenting. We quote these women, we meme them, dress like them, argue about them, argue like them, turn their houses into landmarks, and their fights become vocabulary. Then a new generation of housewives enters the show, already living inside the culture the previous generation helped create. So no, the most interesting thing about The Real Housewives isn't that a reality show somehow lasted 20 years, which is remarkable, but it's that somewhere along the way, it became part of the culture it was supposed to be observing. And Bravo seems to know exactly what it has.